It's what connects the center of the earth to his center. So we are connected through the center of the earth directly from our Taurus. Okay? The center of the earth is connected to the center of the sun through gravity. The center of the sun's connected to the solar system and the other stars in our galaxy this way. Our galaxy has a gravitational center to it that connects to all the other galaxies. So we're literally connected to everything in the universe through our hara. And so we find that this place is where we feel our energetic spring bed, where our energy flows from. And if you ever watch babies who are experimenting with this, they'll, first when they finally manage to get up, anybody seen a baby kind of go like this? Yeah, you know how they do that? Yeah. They're kind of feeling their hara there. Hey, feel that. That's kind of a precursor to walk. And then if you ever had a baby, you know that the first thing they do is when they decide they're not going to crawl to somewhere, but they're standing already, they might as well go over to that corner. They go, and they go down, right? They move from here. They move from their intention generates from here. They do this and then they go down. Eventually, though, when they do that, sometimes the foot comes out and they get a couple of steps before they fall. And then babies, I don't remember myself consciously thinking, hey, these things down here, if I can get them going in front of me, I'll be able to walk over there. I think it just becomes a matter of they're doing it. And they get better and better at it, but my whole point is it's generated from the intention to go somewhere. Likewise, if I point out the window, my intention raises my hand. I don't have to calculate, put your finger out, and then, stretch that muscle, stretch that muscle, stretch that muscle, and then now bring your arm up. I don't have to do that. I intend, and then it happens. Its intention regulates the ki flow. So when I'm working with Aikido, I like to work with intention. So in the conflict situation dynamic, we start to see how in the battlefield, our battlefield intentions represent physically in our body. So thanks for being patient, Brad. So the first thing that happens in warfare is a spear. That's the first weaponry that was developed by human beings is a spear. And so we call this spear energy. And spear energy is a projection of ki through my body and out of my body. So you can see if I send this right into Brett's center, my center doesn't really move. It's an energetic expression out through him. So that's the same thing as a spear or a projectile, right? Anything that we throw or we thrust away from us, right? The next kind would be a shield, okay? Because now we have spears and we're spearing each other. Well, it's not a bad idea to have something up here that blocks that, okay? So this energetic projection from my intention is saying, don't come any closer. That's my intention. Before that, my intention was, back off, buddy, okay? So my intention gets into his central court and moves him back. But this one is don't come any closer. So I may be able to march this forward, but I'm still defending myself. It's not interacting with his central core, it's interacting with his projected energy to here. You see, so that's what I call shield energy. Okay? The last thing that happens in a battlefield is withdrawal, a retreat, running away. Okay? All of those are perfectly fine defenses in some conditions, right? It's not bad. You see an army coming, you run away. You can't fight them. They're overwhelming us. We get out of there so we don't have to go. The next one would be, well, let's put up a barricade. Let's not let them in. There's a fourth one too. That would be a wall, where I kind of invest a lot of energy out here. I'm kind of disappearing out of it. So I've got a barrier, but I'm still withdrawing my energy away. All right. The next one is more confrontational with the barrier, saying, no, you don't come any closer, and I'm right here with you now. And then finally, the projection of ki to the central core, the spear comes out. Okay, so does everybody get an idea of what that's like? All right. So in Aikido, though, the way O-sensei first designed this is knowing about what's happening here. He realized that a spear to a spear, if you move a certain way, turns that energy linearly. It comes right into a central core. Okay? So this is the way we learn Aikido, is to be energetically connected to our partner through this kind of spear energy, and through the turning of our bodies, we turn together. Now, the way I initially learned this, there were a lot of things that happened where I would break his grip free, and I would do things to his joints that made it impossible for him to resist without injuring himself. Right? That's kind of an old way of doing Aiki Jiu-Jitsu, the kind of predecessors to Aikido. But then when O-sensei kept developing this from his revelation, he became more and more aware of exactly what it was he discovered. And so people would say, wow, you know, when I attack O-sensei, I don't feel anything. So what we do now is we find out that there's another kind of projection here. So instead of having the spear come out into something that he feels as a counterattack, because his system feels that immediately. And the problem with doing that is that if it doesn't happen fast enough, he can put up resistance to that. And suddenly we're just having a battle. I have to defend myself. And this is what happens in fights. Some people defend and then they fight, but sometimes they just keep spearing each other. Both people die. It wasn't uncommon to have double deaths in samurai days. You know, both partners so committed to killing the other that there's nothing left for defense. You know, and they both die. Well, O-sensei, I think, found that there's another kind of rejection of this ki, which is actually not so constricted, but flooded. And in this way, you see the same kind of things happen. You see the same kind of things happen. But all of a sudden, he doesn't have the same experience. He has an experience of being taken care of. And you can see I'm physically taken care of. I can get behind him and I can actually make sure he doesn't hurt himself. This to me is the miracle of Aikido. Because now all of a sudden, it doesn't matter how someone attacks you, you can be right with them in a way that dismantles their attack, but doesn't hurt the person who's attacking. And so all of a sudden we find that there's a new kind of way of being with your partner that allows him to express this need without retribution.
It's very graceful.
Yeah, isn't it?
Graceful. It's like a dance.
Some people see it that way. Yeah. Well, what I'm going to give Brett is, let me be okay for a second. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give him not so much as a dance partner, right? But someone who wants his interest. I need your attention because you parked in my space. Now, you can see that Brett withdrew his energy. Okay? Now, in all fairness to Brett, he's been practicing the way I learned, and I've been working on this in a different kind of way for 10 years. So we start to notice in this practice when he withdraws. Right? When he withdraws. And if you think about this being my request for love or my request for his attention, when he withdraws that, it's kind of the same, I'm not going to give you any. Okay, likewise, if he gives me a shield, he's also saying, I'm not going to give you any. If he gives me a spear, he says, I'll give you energy, but it's not quite what you've been asking for. I'll give you love, but it's going to be like a love from a fire hose, you know? But if he can just project this idea, there's a withdrawal, so what you're going to do is don't do your Aikido technique, but you're just going to embrace me now. So don't do your technique, but I want you to change the way you're feeling about it. Now, I'm going to keep this up with him, and this is Brett's kind of training in this. He's never done this before Monday, so don't hold anything against him, and I hope you're not embarrassed by this. Okay, good. So when you change the way you're looking at me, and think about me as someone who maybe, right now he's giving me shield energy. That's fine, keep it up. And he's saying to me, don't come in here. But if I take off, it's like I'm knocking on his door on the front steps. He doesn't want to open the door because I'm wearing a mask. But then when I pull off the mask and he sees it's Uncle Corky, it allows my energy to flow into the spiral that we create. And all of a sudden I'm on the floor, based not on what he does, but what I did.
You're surrendering.
Oh no, I'm not surrendering at all. I'm sending energy right into his central core. That's why when he withdrew before, boom, that's the next thing that happens. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to be a good practice partner for him, because this is where the real benefit of this practice comes out. Because I know Brett is a very compassionate person, and he's trying to feel welcoming and compassion for me, but his system, which is being controlled by his lower brain, is making up all these things about how he is being compassionate. In reality, he's got a shield up. So when I first started practicing this way, I had a practice partner. We knew we were going for something with love, but we didn't know how to get there. So I'd be there, and she'd be giving me this, and I'd be going, compassion.
No,
Forgiveness.
not feeling.
Gratitude. We didn't have that language yet, but nothing would happen. And then finally I'd go, I don't know. What did I have? What happened? What did you feel? I don't know, but let's try it again, let's do it. Compassion.
No.
Joy. Appreciation. For 20 minutes sometimes. And then suddenly something would happen. And that would happen. So it took me, I'm in a process here that's been going on for 10 years. And each time we do it, we start to feel how to embody these things. We're transcending our limbic system response. My limbic system response, my students still catch me, and I'll be with them, and then finally, because I'm having a bad day like everybody else, and then I'll say to my student, what am I not giving you?
Not paying attention to me.
Oh, thank you. And then I'll remember. Somehow I can find it. Or not. I'll sit there and I go, okay, I'm paying attention to you.
You've gone off now.
Oh.
Can I have a drink of water?
Here.
Right, give me a drink.
Oh, now I threw it out.
I'm thirsty.
Oh, water, yes. Because I know what it's like to be thirsty. So we use these little tricks in our practice to find a way to transcend our lower brain response. Because right now, or just then, I can think I'm being compassionate, I can think I'm being forgiving, I can think I'm finding these higher moral qualities. But in reality, my body is saying, my ego is saying, oh yeah, that's it, that's compassion, but don't let him in here. He's dangerous, this is a danger. So this is a practice in proactive compassion. It's a training in compassion. Because he feels that now, and he's not going to go down for me, because he's going to be a good training partner. So if I withdraw my heat, he'll let me know right away. Or if I try to do something that's not, he'll show me that I'm struggling. In Aikido, there's no struggle.
I'm not changing. Can I just say, I'm not changing anything I'm doing. I'm doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. And it's only Sensei's mind which is changing what he's doing. Not physically, this is mind that's changing this way.
Thank you.
Sorry.
That's good. And because that's the whole essence. And that's why these things, even beginners now, when they can finally feel that feeling, and express it to their partner. Now, did you see the little middle part where he kind of got back up? You know, at that point I let him go. I let him go out of my consciousness. I wasn't taking care of him anymore. And his body instantly responded to that. So that's often at that place where the pounce instinct comes in. You know, when I feel he's at a disadvantage, my limbic system goes, got him, take him down. Okay? So this further shows us in our practice where we can uncover those parts of ourselves which are still that way, which are still operating on that lower brain. So, Aikido is about cooperation. So we're going to be learning partners for each other. So I'm going to give him the same thing he's giving me so that we can find those places together. Now that means kind of spirit energy still, right? It's good spirit energy, but that's a withdrawal. So spear energy is a little better than the withdrawal because at least you're connecting to my central core. So that's a withdrawal, right? That's going to bring me right in. Because in a sense, he's taking his love, his ki, and he's dumping it down the drain. And so that usually means people charge in after it. And if you ever watch fight videos on YouTube, which I watch a lot of, because I like to see the dynamics and real conflict, the time when somebody goes like this, the person who's attacking them doesn't go, okay, well, you're done. They really start pounding on them. Because in a sense, the person here is going, not only am I not going to give you anything, I'm hiding it from you. Right? The person who at least defends themselves is saying to the person, I've got it, but you're not getting it. So he knows where it is. So that's why he doesn't advance anymore. All right? And if I give him a spear back, sometimes he has to defend himself. Okay? So you see this hierarchy, right, of these feelings and these expressions in the physical realm. But what we want to do again in Aikido is not have those defense mechanisms rule our response, but come from a place of higher consciousness, where we can take care of our partner, where we can say, oh, I understand why you're attacking. That's all right. I understand that all you want is love. So I'm going to be right there with you. And in a sense, I say, this is we're in it together. We're in it together. We're in it together. We're in this together. Right? I'm here for you. Okay? Now, I gave him a little bit more than he was asking for, just to show off a little bit. Now, it was just to show how this desire here, Nikyo, brings me to the floor. Now, that's a hard style, Nikyo, but if you can now project caring to me, you don't need to put that on anymore. See, the way we learned it, because it's a very difficult thing to teach if you look from a technique standpoint, I have to rely on him to give me certain things in order to learn. So I have to be here for him. And for me to go to my knees now, he has to take advantage of this and crush my arm, which takes the whole purpose away, right? So now we started developing a sense of really attacking so that you can see it's unnecessary, right? But I'm already there. Because in the nature of my need to get your attention, there's the withdrawal. But you're going to give me energy out. Here's the withdrawal, you see. So you're going to extend to get this B up my chest there. See, it's unnecessary.
That's it.
Yeah.
Sensei means teacher.
So he just demonstrated to himself and me that my need to connect to him was sufficient. He didn't have to do it the way he did before, where he trapped my fingers on here to keep me from letting go. The reason in old style Aikido people had to trap fingers is because that makes it very uncomfortable. As soon as I feel that, my limbic system wants to go into defense or attack, right? So it has to become very vicious and fast and painful. But it doesn't have to be if he relies on it. So, other side. It's easy. And then I can take care of it. So these look like a lot of the same kind of things that are happening. And that's happening mostly because we have default ways that we attack. So I've been sending my hand out here. And the part of Aikido where we do those physical movements that you've been watching, those are the parts we train. And we train to do that the way a lifeguard would train how to take care of a drowning person. So it's a very simple process. The attack comes out in a linear way. So when he attacks it, yeah, okay, it's a linear energy right to my central core. If he misses my central core, he's in trouble. So from his standpoint, and from an attacker's standpoint, he's never going to miss me, because his need to connect is like a magnet coming out. It's like electricity going, it's like lightning going to a lightning rod. So if he strikes on that's, yes, there you go. This time don't miss me the first time.
Sensei?
Where am I going? There, you see? I can't move out of the way of it. He's going to track with me. But if I give him something, he finds that he's actually reaching this. As his strike comes through slowly, but as the strike hits here, his system feels that he actually made that connection that he's been looking for in a physical way. He thinks he's going to get this crush down on my head, right? But what he gets is the feeling, this connection, tells his system, this is it, I got it, I'm there. So he has no problem following it. Now, my explanation, thanks for saying, my explanation of why Aikido works is that, and now we'll get to the physical part if anybody wants to try this out. We're not going to do any of that conflict kind of stuff right now. But if you can find a place on the wall, or, if you can stand up and find a way that you can push against the wall about this distance, if there's enough room. And feel free to join me up here too. Just don't walk on the mats with your shoes. So as you push against the wall from here, feel how the harder you push, the more your back foot digs into the floor. You feel that? So all of a sudden, I can be doing all these kind of wacky maneuvers and not falling down, because this is a wall of resistance, and the resistance actually stabilizes me. You feel how that wall, pushing into the wall, makes you more stable? Yeah? Feel it? Okay. So then everybody come a foot away from the wall, something like this. And then push into the wall now. Okay. Well, if you're too close, you notice probably that your foot came out like this. That's a balancing thing. You didn't tell your foot, hey, I better put my foot out here so I don't fall over. This is a natural thing. If I come out here like this and I push over, see, my foot actually comes forward. That is a natural, automatic defense response, okay, for feeling off balance. But if I come out here, I'm going to ask you, am I in balance now?
Yes.
Well, I have an illusion of balance, right? But this wall is now a wall of support. So if the wall were to slowly move away from me, I would slowly go to the floor without feeling it. If it moved away real fast, I'd catch myself, yeah? But if it moves away in harmony with my falling, I'll never feel myself go off balance. Okay? So, Brad, if I resist, it stabilizes him, and he's ready for the next attack. If I move away, he just keeps coming. His lack of balance, he doesn't feel it because his feet are following that track with his intention to meet my central core. Right? But if I can harmonize and support him, he doesn't feel the off-balance feeling that allows him to complete his movement to the floor. So what I'm doing, literally and figuratively, is supporting him in this. I'm saying, that's okay, I understand your need. And I'm right there for you. So you can imagine what would happen if we had governments that worked this way. I understand, I got you, I'm not going to let you fail. We had interactions like this that allowed people to express this need. And no one got hurt. How long would that happen? How long would he keep going? He can go as long as he wants, though, you see. So,
I was joking.
but eventually, what happens is his system, and usually it happens the first time, and in my experience, it happens the first moment they feel that flood of energy into their system. I have never thrown a person, I've been attacked a few times, mostly in cases of mistaken identity. We live in Los Angeles, there are gangs in Los Angeles. I've encountered people who just picked me out of a crowd or mistook me for some kind of, like maybe because I look a little like Heisenberg. But We had an encounter once where someone saw my vehicle outside our apartment and thought I was someone who sold them bad crack. And wanted to get revenge. So I had to deal with that, and I used Aikido. Prior to using Aikido, though, I reacted with kind of a defiance. What are you talking about? I don't even know you. And this enraged this individual. And he was then going to break through the door and shoot up the family and the car and everything. As soon as I realized that I had escalated his response, what am I doing? I'm not doing Aikido. I sent myself back into this mode of sending out this beneficent energy. And it started de-escalating immediately until this individual finally walked away and, hey, I'm really sorry I bothered you. So, and that's the whole point. That's what we want to do. We want to give our attacker, who's really saying, I need love. I need a connection to the spiritual source of my being, and I'm looking for it through you. We want to say, yeah, I'm going to give it to you because I have an unlimited supply. And if we recognize that we have an unlimited supply, we're free to give it. So I want to open the floor for questions right now. Yes.
It's lovely to see how this philosophy and way of being has evolved. I'd like to ask, is it transferable to animals at all?
Well, I'll give you an example. And this was, I had only been doing Aikido for a short while. I'm also working in the film business, and I have done a lot of documentaries. And one time I was on a documentary shoot in the southern part of the United States, in a kind of a rural area. And I'd never heard, at this point, I'd never heard of a dog called a pit bull. Never heard of this kind of dog before. And here I was sitting on a bench waiting, we were milling around this kind of a convenience store, kind of country market. And this dog came walking out. He was the strangest little dog. He had this big head like this, big kind of massive squarish face. A strange looking dog. So I petted him and I was kind of scratching him around the ears. And then he went, and he took my wrist in his arm, in his mouth. And I played rough with every dog that I've had, played around with them like, oh, we're having a tug of war. And I started doing the same with this dog. And then I felt something I'd never felt before because he started to really clamp down. And I could feel his molars grinding into my arm like I'd never felt a dog do before. Now my inclination was to go, ooh, and that fear, right, of like trying to pull my hand away, I believe would have excited this dog in a way I didn't really want. I didn't have a sense of that though. When I felt that, I went, oh, hey, yeah. Oh, that's okay, and the dog, let go. So, I do think it's applicable. I don't recommend trying. No. I don't recommend taking it, Yes.
Right, you might not like this question, but in a cage, cage fighting.
Yes.
How does Aikido perform against like a boxer or jiu-jitsu or judo?
That's a very valid question. The founder of Aikido told us this is not a fighting art, and he actually forbade competition because he said this is to develop you as a spiritual, it's to improve yourself, not to prove yourself against someone else. And so when you get into a competitive mindset, you'll find that the dynamic changes. For instance, this was made as a battlefield art where attacks are meant to kill you the first blow. And the fact is if you don't kill your opponent on the first blow, you're in big trouble. You're going to probably get killed yourself. And also on the battlefield, there's no time for any of the sparring kind of stuff. There's no time for this because he's got his archers are back here, and my guys with clubs and arrows aiming for us. So there's no time for that kind of stuff that you see in cage fighting, squaring up. There's no time for this. This is sport fighting. So if any Aikidoist gets into a ring with anybody else, I wish them luck. Their skills and whatever they've developed are going to be as effective as they train to do that. But we don't train to do that. But it brings up an interesting point because if we're in a battle and we're both being competitive, and I'm only going to win this fight if I knock him out, it's the different idea from Aikido. But we have a boxer, a trained boxer. I don't have my glasses on, so. Oh yes. So you're a boxer. So I'm sure that you don't go off balance when you're fighting, right? You want to stay balanced. So you have, but the thing is, when we're working together, we have a range of effectiveness. And most boxers are going to stay about right here, right? Is that about right? Okay, because, can you throw one out for a second without killing me? You notice his arm didn't come out straight. He came out to about there. And that's about where his energy was projected to, right? Because he knows, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that if you get that thing all the way out here, you're going to start going off balance. Okay, so he's trained not to do that. This means that he has to come within the range of my effectiveness to score. So in a sporting event in this way, we have to come within the range of each other's effectiveness in order to get the power up, right? So that's why you see boxers, they have a lot in defense. See, in sporting events, thank you. In sporting events, the whole idea is defense. Defense is primary. Because I don't care how many times you score against the other person, if you're on the ground at the end of the round, you lose. So we have to, the idea of sporting events is maintaining my balance and maintaining my defense, right? And then in the process of defending myself, I'm going to take some shots. And then it's the pummeling of the other person. And if you ever watch cage fighting or sport fighting, inevitably, well not inevitably, in knockout fights, you'll see one of the guys and he'll get hit, and this one hit, he'll do something like this. And that one instant where his attention is no longer on, he'll just start nailing him. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So that's the pounce instinct. But in Aikido, we don't do cage fighting. This is for real life stuff. It's for real life encounters, in which as soon as I find he's got an idea about attacking, I come in here. Now, I'm not going to defend myself. I'm not going to attack. I'm not going to withdraw. I'm going to find IP if I'm effective.
I tried to get in there, did you see that?
Yeah. So does that explain kind of where we're coming from?
I think it's, can I just step in?
Yes, sorry.
I've been doing Aikido for 20 years, and Sensei's teaching me a lot in the last 2 days. But I think if somebody said, I'm an Aikido fighter, and I'm going to do cage fighting, he would be doing Aikido. Aikido is not a fighting art, so you can't take it into that environment. You'd be doing something else, you'd be fighting. And Aikido is not about fighting.
Yeah. There's certain kind of techniques that you can employ, and you'll see those. You see them, you can look online for police techniques. For instance, police will, when they get somebody, they'll do something like this, and they'll control them this way. Or they'll do what we call Sankhya, which is a wrist lock. And that kind of thing will control him with one hand, right? But the way we practice, the way I practice, this kind of thing right here actually illustrates how much of an attack this is. Because as he puts this onto my center, that's to control me to do that, because he's using the weak part of my arm. But when he puts this on, actually, if I can blend with this, it actually take him over here. So I don't practice even those kind of Aikido attacks anymore. But you can see how they work in some sense. But the problem is with doing it that way, is that most fighters in a cage fight, they're not going to make this attack their all. You understand? Everything is coming from a defense. They'll take this shot out, but not at the risk of their own defense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's different than a real attack in real life, where someone means to kill you. The battlefield, in essence, what Sensei was dealing with. So, and the main thing is that we practice this because we find all these things that are applicable in our non-physical conflicts that we run into every day. Like, for instance, thanks, Brett. So if you want to relax for a second. I'll give you an example that happened to me. I'm in the film business, and I do short-form comedy, and I work in animation. So oftentimes I'm dealing with people who are executive producers and network executives who I've never even met. It's a voice on the phone or an email. Oftentimes I wouldn't even speak to them on the phone. It's a lot of common day communication through electronic means. I also have been able to work really efficiently in low budget things. However, this always puts you to the test, because when you have unlimited funds, you can make mistakes and correct things all the time, but if you have limited funds, any mistake can be disastrous to the whole project. So I'd been working with this company, and we'd agreed on a script, and like the stupid creator that I am, it was way more elaborate than I should have agreed to based on the budget. But I wanted it to really look good. It was something called Titanic. It was a parody of Titanic, the movie Titanic. Only in our version, Kate Winslet not only falls in love with Leo DiCaprio, but with Ellen DeGeneres, who's doing stand-up on the ship. So it was Titanic. Anyway, so we had to build the Titanic, and we had to build ship scenes and all this stuff, and have elaborate costumes that were period pieces. So I was about in the 4th scene of this 10-scene thing, about halfway through, and I get this distraught phone call from the executive producer saying, I don't know what's with that scene, it doesn't work, it's not funny, this is not funny. You're going to have to change all that stuff, we're going to have to recast the lead, and I don't know what it was with that last scene, this other scene that you're sending, but what is this? This is crazy, we're going to have to rewrite it. So immediately I'm thinking, wow, this is nuts. I'm halfway through, I'm already spending more than I should have spent. And I said, no, you're wrong, this is crazy, it is funny, you just have to trust me. And this just infuriated her. She just, we turned it into a screaming match, okay? And I had done stuff for a TV show called Mad TV, which is really low budget. And when they had come to me, I had proposed a bunch of things, and they told me, we want you to do the kind of stuff you did on Mad TV. So part of my argument was, this is just like we did it on Mad TV. And she goes, this is not Mad TV, this is our thing. So even the argument that she had brought to me to use wasn't working. So after I got off the phone, I said, I wasn't doing Aikido, that's for sure, because things just escalated. And before I thought that, I was ready to quit the whole thing, give them all their money back and say, take it and take a walk. And I thought, well, that doesn't help anybody. And so I thought about it, I go, well, I have to do this as an Aikidoist. And part of the thing that we talked about was what we communicate through this touch is we're in this together. We're in this together, okay? That feeling of being part of someone else's experience is very powerful. So I wrote an email, and the first thing I wrote was, I am so sorry that this happened, because I want you to be happy. And this was the first obvious truth, that as much as I wanted myself to be happy, I wanted this person who had put their trust in me to be happy with their choice, right? So I wrote that and I said, maybe there's a way to work this out. I know that there's a way to work this out. Let's have a phone conversation. Now, I'm sure she was sitting back there in New York. I was in Los Angeles. I'm sure she sees that first email come back and she's ready, because I'm going to give her all the excuses and all the reasons I'm right and she's wrong. And instead, she sees this. So the email I get back immediately was, oh, I'm so sorry we did that too. Yes, let's talk about this. So the next morning we get on the phone. And I said, so I've been looking at that scene that you had the problem with. What were you feeling was missing there? And she said, oh, the timing was wrong, and it doesn't work, and it's not funny, and the jokes aren't working. And I said, well, maybe it's a matter of timing, and maybe it's because the music and the sound effects aren't in. All the reasons I knew would give her reason to think it's not working. And I said, but I'll tell you what I'll do. If you will allow me, I'd like to make a few changes in each one of these things, tighten it up a little bit and all this. And she said, okay, that sounds great. Now this other scene, we moved on to the other scene. And I said, well, before I reshoot this scene or we rewrite anything, would you mind if I go to the next scene and just keep moving ahead so we don't kind of stop the track of where we're at? And of course she couldn't not agree with this because it made sense. But it made sense from the standpoint of both of us, moving forward and completing what we needed to do. So I made a 3-frame edit on the scene that she was having problems with. 3 frames. That's nothing. Okay? And I said, I'm going to send this in, and when I sent it in, I said, I haven't got to the other scene, I haven't made the other edits yet, but I'll get to those in time. Let me know if it's still not working for you, blah, 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 blah. As it went on, I never made another cut, okay? Because we added the sound effects, we added the music, the next scene worked now in conjunction with that when people back at the home office were laughing when they saw it. And so what happened was not an argument about all the little minutiae that would make one of us right and one of us wrong, but the combined efforts of us to find a solution in which we could both be happy. And in doing so, this is what Aikido is all about. Now, a lot of times we think that the way we're going to end a problem is to get the other party to agree to our point of view, right? You know, how do you want peace? Well, for me to have peace, you have to stop fighting. Oh yeah, well, for me to have peace, you have to stop fighting. Okay, so it becomes what the other person does, what the other person does, that's what determines the peace. But what would happen if we said to each other, well, see, here's my problem, can you help me solve that? And if you can tell me what your problem is, I'd like to help you solve that. Because no one's going to help the other person solve something at their own expense. But if I can find a solution, right, as if it's my problem, right, you know, all of a sudden we're working on the same team. Even if the other party doesn't do that, my problem in a conflict now is mostly that this person wants me to change, right, or wants something from me that isn't the way it is. That's a big problem. But if I can solve their problem, they won't be a problem to me anymore. It's logical, right? If I can solve their problem, they won't be a problem to me. So in a way, it's what we do in Aikido is we turn off the line of the attack and we can see things the same way now. You see what I mean? What I'm doing is I'm making room. If I don't make room for this point of view, we're never going to come to terms. But if I can make room for the point of view without it having any kind of way of taking my point of view away, without sacrificing the validity of my point of view, we find there's ample room for what seem to be conflicting points of view, because at the bottom level of all this, we're really all after the same thing. Human beings have very few basic needs, and all the conflict arises from fear that those needs are not going to be met. Would you agree?
It's creating a win-win situation.
Exactly. And what we learn in Aikido is we can be the first person to move off the line. To be the person who says, I'm going to accept your point of view. And I'm going to accept it as valid. I'm going to accept that it's valid. And I'm not going to hold it against you that you want to destroy me. Because that wanting to destroy me comes from another place. It comes from fear. If you think about injustice, injustice arises from the fear that if someone has an equal standing with me, I'm somehow going to lose out. Do you know what I mean? That's injustice. So if the people who
I
are
don't understand.
injustice, let's say that I'm a king and I want to keep my subjects down. I'm keeping them down because I fear that if they rise to the level of me, somehow I'm going to lose out. You know, like racial problems. The idea of racial problems, white supremacy in America. You know, why we wanted to keep the former, you know, the African slaves that we enslaved to do our labor. We don't want them to rise to our level because we're afraid that they'll either take over or they'll destroy us in retribution. It's that fear level that kept, you know, the systemizing of repression on ethnic groups down from, you know, white America. You know, the fear that if we're all on an equal playing field, that we'll be disadvantaged, that we won't have the things that we want, you know? So if we are those disadvantaged people, like in Gandhi's India, right? Gandhi said, no, we're not out to destroy the British. We're not out to revolution. We're not out for revolution. We're not out to kill you. We just want to be independent, right? That mentality didn't come across as a violent thing. the methods were like, well, we're just not going to obey the unjust laws, that's all. You know, we're not going to say we'll use your salt instead of getting our own. We're going to go get our own salt. And it took some inconvenience, right? It wasn't convenient for people to make a march to the sea to get salt. It was more convenient to keep buying the British salt or keep buying the British cotton. And Gandhi said, no, we're going to change the playing field, right? By not trying to dismantle, not fighting it off, but finding a way to just be independent. So that's why we see Gandhi with his spinning wheel. And the whole time he's talking about this stuff, he's making thread out of cotton. It's very inconvenient to do that. It's more convenient to buy into the system, right? And that's how the system keeps us dominated. So if he grabs me, maybe it's easy to, okay, yeah, all right, what do you want? What are you looking for?
I want you to take you out that door.
Okay, but can I get my coat first?
No, I'm going straight out now.
Okay, well, I'll run out real fast so he's not grabbing me. Or,
I'm taking out that door.
no, I'm not going to go.
You are.
What are you going to do to make me? Try it, buddy. Right? Or it could be,
I'm going to take you out the door.
okay, well, come on, let's go. Maybe it's inconvenient. Maybe I don't want to go with him. But let me ask you something. Is it going to be more convenient to fight him and maybe lose? Or to withdraw, to kind of try to figure out how I'm going to sneak around and not be under his charge? Or is it that we're in this together? And when you've taken me outside and we've seen what your problem is, then we won't have a problem anymore. Any more questions? Any other questions?
So what if someone comes at you with a knife?
Do you remember the old Monty Python? Here's what happens when someone comes after you with a banana. Well, if he comes after me with a knife, here's a knife. Here comes a knife. Okay, well, there's a couple of ways knives can be wielded. Here it comes. Where's your knife now? You okay? Sorry, I moved you off the mat. Okay?
I'm going to attack him. I'm going to try and get him all the time. As soon as I've attacked him, I'm going to continue to attack him and get him.
Okay, we're together. Now see where the knife is now? Okay, it's energetic flow. Thank you. A lot of Aikido used to be about disarming the partner. So here he comes, and I come in here like that, and I do this, and I work this out of his hand. You okay? Sorry, we're off the mat.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, the problem is, the reason why he's using this is he believes this is what keeps him safe. This is what gives him an advantage. So rather than take it away from him, I'd rather he feel like he's free to have it as long as you want. So that if he wants to try it again, he's free to do it. It's all right. It's okay. It's okay. I got you. It's okay. Have you got your knife?
Yep.
Okay, you keep that. That'll keep you safe.